Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright people, review of the week time. So, quick one, before we get into it, appreciate the support on the documentary we did. That was tremendous. I think that was look, I'm going to be biased, but I thought that was a great one. I thought it really went well. Took about 3 weeks for everything between script writing, research and editing, and shout out to Dan, the editor, done a just brilliant job, can't recommend him enough. He's been doing the thumbnails now for over a year, as well as doing some editing on the channel, and he's just tremendous. I mean, I was really impressed with the documentary, how it looked at the end, and yeah, shout out to everyone who watched it and keep watching it. I've got a documentary before Sky have, so I'm delighted with that. Doing my bit for this fight, Eddie Hearn. Just chucking that out there. But let's get in and we'll talk about some of the fights that happened last night. So we'll start with... Sorry, we had choices last night. We did. We had a couple of choices. I watched the card that was on in Belfast. So I watched the Michael Conlan card. I had a fair idea. We'll start with that one. I had a fair idea how the main event would go. But the rest of the card I was quite intrigued to look at. Paddy Donovan getting a win over Tom Hill. I rate Paddy Donovan quite highly. I think he's tremendous. I think the problem with Paddy Donovan is he's a fighting at welterweight. That division is not going to get any easier. So Paddy Donovan is going to have to he's going to have to really rise, cream of the crop kind of style rise. But I think he's tremendously talented. He's still he's only about 23, isn't he? Yeah, he's 23, calls himself the real deal, definitely has some pop there, a lot of speed, athleticism, so I was quite happy with his performance against Tom Hill. I really was. I thought he was a good performance. He's got Andy Lee training him, and you know, he's got a lot of youth on his side in that sense. He's obviously promoted by Top Rank as well. I know he's been on a couple of MTK shows, but he is a Top Rank fighter. So Paddy Donovan, we'll keep watching. I think he goes up to 9-0 following on from that fight. Patrick McCroy against Paraban. Look, he did what he needed to do. He got the guy out there in the 5th round. He's got a bit of power, does Patrick McCroy, but he needs to sort that defense out, because sooner or later he's going to get tagged, and he is going to get his head taken clean off him when he goes up through the levels. His defense is really not the best, but in terms of punching power, he definitely seems to have a lot of pop there. Definitely. Now the fight that I enjoyed this fight the most, but I got to call hometown decision when I see one. Chris Jenkins, Tyrone McKenna. McKenna didn't win that fight. Did not win that fight. I had it 97-93. Chris Jenkins. He won the fight. I mean, McKenna occasionally would come through with a nice little combination. McKenna was doing more what he wanted. He was landing more cleanly on McKenna. I think Chris Jenkins knew, even before they announced the scorecards, that this was not going to be... He was not going to get it. He was in Belfast. It was on a Conlan show. He was never going to get the nod. So McKenna moves on. McKenna at this stage, he's 32 years old, 23-3. He's only lost to Prograis. He took a bit of a beating in that fight. He's lost to O'Hara Davis. The O'Hara Davis fight is an interesting one. Personally, I actually thought he'd done enough to nick that fight. Just enough to nick the O'Hara Davis fight. He got a win before against Mohamed Mamini. Now that fight was a robbery, because he definitely didn't win that fight, and obviously lost to Jack Cattrall. So he's had a kind of a career. He's kind of found his level at British level, but he is trying to progress. McKenna fights all action, but if you see McKenna and you see his attributes, you just think, why do you do that? You're a tall, rangy southpaw, but yet you either stand upright, well, you do try and box, which is just not good, or you hunch down and give up your height and reach, one or the other, and you come in looking for a war. Because whenever he does try and box, you can see a bit of boxing ability there, but he stands so upright. You know, when he moves, here's another thing he does. Whenever he's trying to box, he's always moving directly towards his opponent's power hand, which is completely... You don't want to be doing that. I don't know how Pete Taylor's not a bad coach. I don't know how he's not fixed that in McKenna yet. He's been training with McKenna for a couple of years now. But anyway, they're minor nitpicks. In terms of the main event, Mariaga versus Conlan, wasn't expecting much. Got the fight I expected, truth be told. Mike Conlan did what he needed to do. He outboxed Miguel Mariaga. If that was the Miguel Mariaga who fought Nicholas Walters all them years ago, yeah, he'd have given Conlan a tough fight, but it was always going to be a fairly straightforward win for Michael Conlan. Look, he's at featherweight. I don't see him doing much at featherweight, truth be told. I think that even guys who aren't champions stand a very good chance of beating Conlan. And yeah, I think that guys coming up, Fulton, Figueroa. I think Figueroa's already at featherweight. But guys like that, I just can't see. I just can't see Mick Conlan doing much against them, truth be told. So we'll see with Mick Conlan. He's now going on 31. And we'll need to see how he looks when he gets in there with someone who'll put a bit of pressure on him. How will he take it, neurologically, following on from that devastating knockout defeat he suffered at the hands of Lee Woods? Because you just don't know what way he might be following on from that. In terms of the zone card, I think I seen one fight live, and then I caught up on most of these after the fact. I watched some of them after last night. So I did see Campbell Hatton against Michael Dufek. Now, going into that fight, I actually was a bit worried for Campbell Hatton, truth be told, going into that fight, because Michael Dufek, his record was 34-23 at the time. He'd only been stopped 7 times, so reasonably durable. That wasn't really what I was worried about. The kind of thing that I was kind of raising an eyebrow at was, out of the 34 wins, 22 of them are by KO. So that indicates to me he's got a little bit of pop. And you're managing Campbell Hatton, training Campbell Hatton, seeing how raw he is. You maybe don't want to take a risk with someone who has a bit of power, because Campbell Hatton makes a lot of mistakes defensively, and he did it in this fight. And you just worry that one of them shots might land, and this guy might have a bit more power. He did get hit a couple of times, but it didn't really make much of a difference. Campbell Hatton boxed well, looked a lot better than he has in previous fights. He is a work in progress. He is going to take a bit of time to get to where he needs to get. But without sounding horrible here, and look, Campbell Hatton, I get the impression he really does want to try and do boxing, unlike, say, Tommy Fury, who just wants fame. I just don't see much in Campbell Hatton, and I think that, you could put Emmanuel Stewart in there training him if Stewart was still alive, and you still wouldn't. Eddie Futch, Emmanuel Stewart, Freddie Roach, they all couldn't do much with Campbell Hatton, truth be told. So I'd be amazed if he wins a British title when it's all said and done. I would. I seen Johnny Fisher against Michael Rising. Yeah, Fisher did what he needed to do, went in there, got the stoppage in the second round. I mean, this guy was pretty poor, truth be told. So I wasn't going in there expecting, miracles, put it like that, in that fight. And obviously, I didn't catch the full Jordan Thompson fight against Vyacheslav. Is it Dusar? Is how you pronounce the guy's name? It did seem to me a bit of a risk, if I'm honest. I was looking at that thinking, okay, that's an interesting one. And it nearly backfired in the last round, because had there been even another 10 seconds, Jordan Thompson could have been in real trouble. Could have really got taken out. He moves on. He'll learn a good bit from that now, Jordan Thompson. But that was a risk. And obviously I saw Dalton Smith versus Sam O'Mason. Now, I didn't watch this fight live, but I was checking Twitter, and a lot of people were saying Sam O'Mason looked terrible. So I was like, okay, like, how bad, realistic? And I didn't realise he'd only had one fight since 2019, which was back in May. So when I actually watched this fight, or rewatched it, they were saying he was having like a second career. So without even looking at his boxing, I was thinking, is he one of them fighters who's just kind of, he's had a couple of losses early on, but they were very early in his career. Maybe he wasn't managed properly at the time, but now he's much better. No, Mason looked terrible, making loads of mistakes. He was so easy to find with Smith's right hand, it was crazy. Smith really could have taken him out in a couple of rounds if he really wanted to. Took him 6 rounds to get the job done. Yeah, I mean, I rate Dalton Smith. I think he's a good fighter. I've seen a couple of his fights now. This, truth be told, was no different than fighting the Lee Appleyards and the Ray Moylettes of the world. I thought that Dalton Smith, maybe, judging by what they were saying kind of in the build-up, Sam O'Mason, he might be a bit better than the Ray Moylettes, the Lee Appleyards, but no, he's on par with them. Maybe even a bit worse, but he's on par with the Moylettes and the Appleyards, truth be told. Never really going to test Dalton Smith, never really going to be anything more than just cannon fodder, and that's exactly what it was. So Dalton Smith, I think that he has a great stable. You know, he's in a great stable. He's got Sonny Edwards there. His dad, Grant Smith, is becoming, for me, one of my favourite trainers in the UK. Tremendous boxing brain on Grant Smith. Absolutely tremendous boxing brain on him. So I'm a big fan of Grant Smith as a trainer, and I think he's doing good work with Dalton. He's doing very good work with Sonny Edwards. So he's in with very good company. He's in with extremely good company there, and I think Dalton Smith will do. I think he'll do something before it's all said and done. I really do. Truth be told, I think he'll do a good bit more before it's all said and done. I will. Now, here we go with this. Let's talk about the zone card in the US. Specifically, one fight I want to particularly talk. I might even start with this. Maurice Hooker, Blair Cobbs. Now, even at this stage, I thought that Maurice Hooker would have got past Blair Cobbs. But obviously, I was wrong. And I talked about him potentially being an opponent for Conor Benn. Based upon what I seen there, Conor Benn have no trouble with Maurice Hooker. At this stage in Hooker's career. I mean, he really, after that loss, where is it? In 2019 to Ramirez, he just went downhill. I mean, there's a couple of draws here. Like the draw with Dallas Perez back in 2016. That wasn't a draw. He should have lost that fight. There's other draws here earlier in his career. Even a draw in his pro debut. You know, when you see a couple of draws, you got to imagine some of them could have went the other way. Where I never rated Maurice Hooker as one of the best out there. But I even thought he would have got by Blair Cobbs. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I mean, again, I said Conor Benn would have beaten. Yeah, like I was talking about, would Eddie Hearn get Maurice Hooker? And I was thinking, would that be a bit of a risk then? I looked at that, I was like, nah, Conor Benn beat this guy. He beat him. He definitely beat him. And then in the main event, obviously, McKinson versus Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, again, him and Boots Ennis, two of my favourite welterweights to fight personally. I love watching both of them. And he got the win over Michael McKinson, beat McKinson from pillar to post in this fight, stopped him in, well, had him down from a body shot in the 8th and then dropped him again in the 9th. McKinson's corner came through the towel in, and that was a good stoppage by the corner, I thought, because I thought McKinson just, enough's enough. You know, sort of way, like, enough is enough. That was that. So, that's the fights for the weekend out of the way. Let's get into the boxing news. So we'll bring it back. So, news that broke during the week last week was Jack Catterall signed a multi-fight deal with Boxer and Sky Sports. So again, that's an interesting one. So, Jack Catterall, now he was signed with Probellum. And Probellum, in the nicest way, I'm starting to see Probellum as a bit of a sinking ship. But you never know, they could turn it around. But he signed with Boxer. Boxer are gaining the stay. They're getting more names in their stable. It seems like every other week they're announcing a new fighter, whether it's someone turning over from the amateurs or whether it's a fighter going from another network. It seems like every other week they're getting an announcement and they're getting a new fighter. So Jack Catterall joins. I recently seen Lerone Richards. Some people are saying he's left Matchroom. Others are saying not necessarily. His contract has just expired with Matchroom and he's weighing up his options. Now, Lerone Richards, I like Lerone Richards. I think he's a good boxer. But I'm not going to lie and say that he's entertaining. He's not the most entertaining fighter you'd ever see. You know, but he's a very good boxer. He's a tremendous boxer. If Eddie Hearn is not the highest bidder, I wouldn't be shocked, put it like that. And if he does leave Matchroom and go Boxer, I wouldn't be shocked. Some people were saying that maybe Eddie Hearn would look at that and think it's not a big loss. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but at the end of the day, if you're losing fighters, and you might turn around, and like I can get this. I get this 100% if someone would say, look, losing Liam Smith, losing Chris Billum-Smith, losing Lerone Richards, it's not like losing Anthony Joshua. It's not like losing Canelo or Conor Benn. And I get that. However, on your AJs, your Conor Benns, your Canelo, you know, Dalton Smith, if you're trying to build him, on his cards and on his undercards, who's going to fill the cards? You know? So, like, yeah, is Lerone Richards, will he ever win a world title? I don't know, he might. But is he ever going to be selling out the O2? Probably not. But he is a good co-main event on an undercard that you're not too sure of. As is Liam Smith. Maybe he could headline a smaller show. But these are good card fillers, if you get me. So you don't want to lose them at the same time. Yeah, I get the fact that they're not going to make a crazy amount of money, but like Johnny Fisher versus, a Bulgarian journeyman as a co-main event, is that really going to be better than seeing Lerone Richards defend an IBO? I know an IBO is not a real world title, but you get the gist of it. You could sell it as a world title defending it's a co-main event. I think that's better. So Eddie Hearn and DAZN, we need to see what's going on. I mean, Eddie Hearn's already been talking about the possibility of Fury Chisora 3. He said Derek's had an offer from Tyson Fury. Money wasn't enough. I'm not sure that this fight's going to happen. Good to see Fury keeping his options open. Money wasn't enough. At this stage in Chisora's career, getting offered a fight against Tyson Fury. Okay. Let's see. Now, this one here is interesting. It says Eddie Hearn on a recent Boxing Social interview about Billy Joe Saunders and Billy Joe Saunders' return. We looked at it, talked some numbers. I don't think we can deliver what he wants us to deliver. So we're happy for him to take his opportunities elsewhere. I'd love to see Billy Joe Saunders back with us or with somebody else. Now, the reason why I find that interesting, right, is because there was a post from, I think it was called the Sheffield Star. This was about a month, maybe 2 months ago, and it said that Billy Joe Saunders was back training with Dominic Ingle. And in that article, it also stated that a representative from Billy Joe's team had actually said, no, he's retired. So Eddie Hearn is saying that he's speaking with Billy Joe, and look, I would assume that Billy Joe really wants the big money fights, and Eddie Hearn probably looks and thinks, we can't pay you crazy money. And I'm sure Billy Joe got good money for the couple of shows he did have on DAZN pre-Canelo. And I guess with Eddie Hearn, it's a bit like what's happening with Cody. Like, he probably just cannot be taking losses on shows. And is Billy Joe Saunders against whoever, if it's not a big name, is he really going to sell out? I don't think he will. Certainly not at this point. So I get where Eddie Hearn is. Some people are going to say, Eddie Hearn's leaving him short change. No, I don't think he is. I think that he's just looking at it from what the zone have in terms of their budget and saying, if you want crazy money and you're not going to be fighting like a Canelo rematch, you know what I mean? I'm not saying he'll get offered that, but you know what I mean in terms of that level. They're going to be like, we can't pay you that. Maybe Warren can, maybe Boxer and Ben Shalom can, but not that we can. We can't take losses. So I get that. But Billy Joe, I reckon, wants just the big money fights, the Triple Gs, the Canelos, someone like that, the Eubanks, and that's it. That's what I get Billy Joe wants. The reason why, again, I find that post interesting was that it stated Billy Joe was retired back a couple of months ago. So what's changed? Now, I think there's two things. Two potential possibilities with Billy Joe. One is that it's easier now to say he's retired whilst the situation with that managerial company dies down. You know, because Billy Joe, about El Chapahan, you know, he's been very close with him. He's bigged him up several times. Maybe Billy Joe and his team think, you know what, best to be away from boxing until all that's died down. Or it's because, well, if he's retired but he's training with Dominic Ingle, well, he's not in a camp. He's not he might be licensed, but he's not boxing in any of the sanctioning bodies. Therefore, if he's coming in to train with Dominic Ingle and he's way overweight, well, VADA ain't going to come knocking, are they? If you say you're retired, because all he's doing is doing boxing training. He's not actually training for a fight if he's retired. So they're the two theories, I think, about the retirement statement that we seen in the Sheffield Star back, I think it was July, or start of July. Now, this one's a bit of a worry. I love this fighter, but I don't know. Nonita Donaire has insisted that he will not be retiring following his defeat to Naoya Inoue. Instead, Donaire has intended to... Wow, this took me by... Wow, really? Move down, Jesus, to super flyweight? Fight Chocolatito Gonzalez. Oh my God, that fight, I know, but... Chocolatito versus Donaire? Or Kazuto Ioka and become a 5-weight world champion. Did he never fight? Did he never win a world title at Superfly? I know he won his title against Darchinian at Fly. Did he go straight to Bantam? It's that long now. He's had that long a career. I think that was 2007. Superfly, jeez. At this point in Donaire's career, I know it's only 3 pounds, but still, at that weight, crazy. Him against Chocolatito. Jesus. For those who are interested, Alex Wasabi has pulled out of his fight against KSI on the 27th of January, August. So now it's believed, who is he going to fight instead? He's going to fight some other guy called Swazerman. Apparently he's a rapper. Swazerman. Never heard of him. Never heard of most of these guys. Never heard of Jake Paul until he started boxing, truth be told. I do find some of these names interesting. You know, there's a story about, I remember years ago, I think it would have been about 7-8 years ago. I forget who it was. Might have been Tiny Temper or one of them rappers. And I remember mentioning Tiny Temper. This was just in a pub a couple of years ago. And at the time, one of my friends was going out with like a girl. She was from down the country, and a few of like her friends and all that were up there. So, you know, they're down the country in Ireland, which is a bit of a kind of, you know, for me that's a no-go zone. They're a bit out in the wilderness. And I remember mentioning that name, and one of the guys was like, "Is that his real name, Tiny Temper? That's a very strange name to call your child." I was like, "Mate, it's a rapper. They have these different names, you know." I don't think when Plan B was born, his parents looked at him and said, "Well, we wanted a girl, but Plan B will do." That's not how it works. So that's who he's fighting. Is that still on the Zone pay-per-view? Probably is. God knows that. God knows. Now here's one that I hope is true. Now the date for this is a bit kind of miffy, but I would hear me out. Bob Arum has declared that he has had positive conversations with Oleksandr Usyk about a potential undisputed heavyweight title fight against Tyson Fury should he beat Anthony Joshua. I would hope to do that fight in December or maybe early next year. More than likely early next year, truth be told. I can't imagine even if Usyk wins against Joshua, he'd be ready to go in December. But that is good if that is the case, because that means that we are likely, hopefully, to get undisputed next year if that is the case. I think that if AJ wins, I would say it's inevitable we're going to see him against Fury. But if Usyk wins, I'm hoping, I'm crossing everything that we see under. I'd love to see it. Bob Arum has also said that Artur Beterbiev owns 3 titles. If he gets by Anthony Yarde, they will have, and we have a result from Bivol versus Ramirez. If it happens, they absolutely want to go for undisputed. Now, we haven't yet had an announcement on Anthony Yarde. I was expecting to get an announcement on Yarde versus Beterbiev 02 in October. They were talking about. I was probably late October because Conor Ben at the start of October. But we still haven't heard anything. Haven't heard zilch from Yarde, from Beterbiev, from anything about that fight. So watch the space there. I mean, the longer they leave it, the better for Yarde it is, because Beterbiev isn't getting any younger. Bob Arum has said that he told Devin Haney that he will get Vasyl Lomachenko if he beats George Kambosos in the rematch on October 15th. Usyk is able to leave his home country for a tune-up fight. Yeah, I'd imagine he would need a tune-up fight. He's been out of the ring for a while now, so all signs point to Loma. Haney, if Loma has a fifth of what's left, I'd pick him over Devin Haney. I really would. Let's see how he looks in his next fight, but I'd pick him over Devin Haney. I would. I think the footwork, the movement, the angles would offset Devin Haney's range. Now, there's a video of Oleksandr Usyk, and he is looking in shape. He is looking big. He's looking bulked. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to get a separate video out on that maybe tonight, Sunday night, before I talk about that. So wait and watch the space with that. We'll kill this one off with Jojo Diaz, William Zepeda, lightweight clash, November 5th. Good fight. Gonna give Zepeda the edge in that one. I like William Zepeda. I think he's a very good fighter. And Jojo Diaz is not a 135 pounder. He's a flipping super featherweight who's too lazy to make the weight. That's exactly what Jojo Diaz is. There's no business at lightweight. There's no business there. But that's a good fight nonetheless. So let me know your thoughts. I think we got enough covered in review of the week. I think we got in a good 20 or so minutes, give or take. You know, whenever there's a couple of fights on over the weekend, they tend to drag these ones, as in like to go on a bit. So hopefully it's not gone on too long, and I've got everything in a package for you. So I don't think I'll have a guest on this week. I don't think I will anyway. Watch the space with that. But if we don't have a guest on, Tuesday we'll do a live, and I will make the guests. And what I mean by that is we'll do a live We'll leave a link after we get a couple in the chat, and I'll let a couple of the subs hop on, tell me their picks for the fights and predictions. How's that sound, people? We'll try and do that on Tuesday if we can't get a guest. For now, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. People, if you could, smash the like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a mil for watching. All the support, appreciate it. Peace.